Yeah, my appetite has been completely, if not overly, satiated. We have both recently found ourselves stuck, having things that we feel like we need to do, and yet wanting to do something very different instead. If you followed, watched our last couple of weeks of videos, you've known that we've been stuck in a lot of things, and this is the latest in the line of things that we've gotten stuck in and are trying to overcome. And that is this wanting to do something different than what we feel like we need to do in order to best make progress.
And sometimes that wanting, it's not just, I really would like, but it's an urgent draw.
Yes. A draw at the expense of what you feel like you need to do. Mm-hmm. And for me, the way that showed up was in reading fiction books. We've heard it said a lot of times, if you want to write good fiction, you have to read good fiction. If you want to know how to write well, you've got to read other people who write well. You've got to know the things to emulate. And I have been reading a lot of fiction lately, a lot more than I normally do, because naturally I'm much more drawn to nonfiction. And I have found myself almost fictioned out, and I felt like I need to read this fiction book. I really don't want to. I want to read this nonfiction book instead. And so what I end up doing is just not reading anything at all, because I feel like if I'm going to read, I have to read this, but I don't want to read that. So I'm just not going to read anything.
And my little conundrum has been a little bit different. It has been in the writing, the development of the book, of the novel. And what I have felt that I wanted to do what I felt I needed to do was to finish writing the chapter, or the scene, really, just the prologue scene that I said I was going to write multiple episodes ago, and have found myself stuck for various reasons. Got unstuck last week from a practical standpoint. I sat down to write this weekend and found myself still brain going a whole bunch of different places where I feel I should put words on the page. And what I have felt wanting to do instead is think about how all of these pieces fit together in the whole book. How is this scene going to relate to that scene? And just exploring, trying to envelop myself or immerse myself in that world. That's what I felt like I wanted to do, felt kind of compelled to do. So that's how our situations have been a little bit different. Where they've been the same, as you mentioned, you want to do one and you feel you should do the other, so you just don't do it. Well, I actually sit down to write. Okay, I'm going to sit, I'm going to write, I'm going to put words on paper or on the page, the pixels on the page, however it goes. And my brain is just stuck. It's exploring, it's refusing to do what I said. So I end up, not by choice, but in practice, also not doing anything. I think I reserved about an hour and a half, maybe 2 hours this Saturday, and I got an entire paragraph written of a very, very ugly, nasty first draft that's telling about the story more than it is telling the story. So that's been my experience lately.
And we're trying to figure out how to overcome this. And we have found in our discussion together that what we think is the best solution to our problems, even though our problems are very similar, it's almost opposite solutions. And what you suggested to me, as far as reading fiction versus nonfiction, is give yourself a break. Read a nonfiction book. Read the book that you want to read. And then afterwards, come back to reading fiction and set some sort of pattern of doing what you want to do versus doing what you feel like you should do, doing what will help us make progress in this area. And having that back and forth of kind of rewarding myself at the end of having read a fiction book with getting to read the book that I want to read, it will hopefully help me stay motivated to actually read something rather than just not reading anything at all.
And right now, you don't want to read it because you have read so much. And I think once you are able to go back in and read your fiction, then you will read your nonfiction. You will want to read the nonfiction.
Yeah, my appetite has been completely, if not overly, satiated of fiction books right now, and so hopefully, reading some nonfiction books will give that appetite a chance to grow again, and so I actually will have a bit more of a desire to read fiction books once I'm done reading a nonfiction.
And my approach is a little bit different, and that is the thing that I said that I'm supposed to do. That really is the thing that I'm supposed to do. I have spent lots of time exploring, being in the bigger set of the world and letting my mind wander in those areas. So my focus right now, I have recently purchased a book. It should be arriving in a few days. It is the book called Deep Work by Cal Newman. And that is all about letting yourself get into that flow state where you can be immersed in the work and not be so distracted by all of the things around. I'm finding not just in this fiction writing, but in many other areas where maybe I used to be able to get into a flow state where I can lose track of time, just crank out something that is creative. I'm finding that a lot harder to do, that there are so many other things that are distracting me and not necessarily worthwhile things. It was this Saturday, I was telling him, I sat down, I got myself comfortable, then I got up and fixed myself a cup of tea and put that down there and didn't drink any of it. Then I got up and fixed myself a bowl of snack and set that down. And then I ate all of it. All of these little things that distract from getting into that intense flow state. Mm-hmm. So that book, Deep Work by Cal Newman, I've seen that recommended frequently. That's the next step that I'm going through for personal development to help me with that.
So we have a very similar problem, but different enough that we believe it warrants different solutions. Mm-hmm. So our question for you today is, what is your response when you feel a tension between what you want to do and what you feel like you should do? Let us know in the comments, and we will see you next week.